Good evening, I should say. I want to do a video about a missing superstar, really, in Andre Ward. I've already mentioned him on a couple of previous videos, but I am a fan of Andre Ward's, despite sometimes the comments I make about him. Although I'm just being honest, doesn't necessarily take away the fact that I'm a fan or not a fan. I just want to talk about his recent events and where he's going next, really. Let's be honest. He's only had 2 fights since the Super 6 final against Carl Froch in 2011, December 2011. So that's 2 fights in just over 3 years, basically. Now, initially, of course, he fought Chad Dawson at super middleweight with Andre Ward's titles on the line in what was just the complete deconstruction of Chad Dawson, really. Didn't really have a sniff in the fight from start to finish while it lasted. And then the following year, in 2013, after his injury problems with his shoulder, he actually attended the Carl Froch-Miguel Kessler rematch at London O2, which I was there. And at that point, it looked like it was going to be maybe a Carl Froch Andre Ward 2, possibly in the UK. But from my understanding, Andre Ward's demands. You can actually watch a video where Andre Ward even says Wembley Stadium for a rematch between Ward and Froch, which, craziness. That wouldn't even sell half of Wembley. Ward's not even a big name in the USA. I think he's probably got about as much popularity over here as, as probably not even one of our regular British champions. Although he is well known over here, but a lot of people are of the opinion, he's not exactly the most exciting fighter to watch. And in that respect, I don't think many people would part with their hard-earned money to watch his style of fighting. Even I would, but then, I'm kind of both sides of the fence. I do love a box. I love boxing pure, as well as a knockout specialist. It's all part of the sport. It's all part of this brilliant sport. So I think you've got to appreciate all types of fighting and techniques and styles. But from my understanding, that fight, it kind of went through because Carl Froch, will even admit it to himself. You could put Andre Ward and Carl Froch in a ring anywhere on this planet, even on the moon, it wouldn't make a difference. There's no way could Carl Froch outbox Andre Ward. He's not quick enough. He's not technically skilled enough. He's not got enough movement. His defense isn't good enough. We all know Carl Froch is the kind of fighter that has to take a punch or two to land his own punches. So, he's never going to claim a judge's scorecard decision. I say that he'll never claim a judge's scorecard decision, but the two of the scorecards from the first fight were absolutely crazy. 115 to 113. That was just absolutely absurd. But that's one man's. It isn't one man's opinion. That's everyone's opinion. But moving on from there. There was talk about that until that fell through because of the demands. Would that happen now? No, because Carl Froch is not going to give up the majority of the purse to fight a man that he knows he's probably going to lose to and have no more than a puncher's chance in beating. So why take the risk, especially when you're in your last 2 or 3 fights of your career? There was also talk in the summer of last year, 2014, after a bit more of an injury problem and some contractual contract problems with his promoter following Andre Ward's defeat of Adrian Rodriguez, which doesn't really even mention because it was quite straightforward, although both guys were rather dirty in that fight. That fell through as well. I'm not sure why that fell through. That was never actually released publicly why it fell through, but I'm assuming it's due to Andre Ward's problems with his promoter, of course, Dan Goossen, at that time, before, of course, Dan Goossen sadly passed away. So let's look at Andre Ward's position now then. He's still wildly recognised as the guy, 168 pounds, with a lot of people even saying he's probably, could probably beat anyone at 175 or 160 as well. Which, to a certain extent, I can agree with that statement. However, the problem Andre Ward's got now is he's kind of spent the last year and a half, kind of contradicting himself, saying nobody wants to fight him. It's not, I'm here to fight, blah, blah, blah. But then in the same breath, on about contract dispute with his promoter. Well, what fighter and promoter are going to work with each other to get a fight when they're both against each other in court? I don't understand that. So I think Andre Ward making that statement was purely ridiculous. I think he understands that no one will touch him with a barge pole because of his issues with his promotional side of things. But now, of course, when I heard the news last month that Andre Ward had signed with Rock Nation, I was delighted actually, because I thought, hey, fantastic news. The promotional problems are over. Let's get Andre Ward back in the ring. Let's get him a tune-up fight and get him back into a big fight in the summer. Well, he signed with Rock Nation, I believe, on the 14th of January last month. We're now on the 23rd of February, and we are nowhere near or nowhere closer to hearing about a yet opponent for Andre Ward next, which is quite worrying. I do realise Rock Nation have had their problems. Gary Shaw's already pulled out, and they've been having some issues behind the scenes. But they're still a promotional company. They need to get their fighter in the ring. They need to make money. They need to promote an event, get a fight on, get everybody paid, get Andre Ward back in the limelight. If there's one thing that Rock Nation could possibly do, especially obviously with Jay-Z at the helm, that is promote a fighter back in and make him big again. Get his name flown about, get some popularity. But I haven't seen nothing. I haven't seen. I've not even seen even articles or interviews really since the initial signing of Andre Ward by Rock Nation. So I don't really understand what's going off there, but I'm presuming they are working on a fight soon. Maybe just things are progressing a little bit slower than they thought. But if they are progressing a little bit slower, I've got a theory or two why, and that's what I want to delve into now. Now, I'm going to use the unofficial. Well, there isn't no official top 10 rankings for super middleweight, of course, because every belt has its own rankings, hence its own mandatories. But what I've used today is I used the Ring Magazine's official super middleweight rankings, who of course at the minute don't have Andre Ward on their rankings at all, whether pound for pound or super middleweight, due to the fact he's been inactive for over 12 months, which is something for me that I agree with, because I do the same thing on my pound for pound ranking list personally. Okay, so let's just have a quick scan down the list. Carl Froch is obviously number one on that list. We've already talked about Carl Froch. That fight's never going to happen. I don't think Carl Froch is interested. I don't even think Ward's all that interested, in all honesty. I think Ward would rather face someone he hasn't faced before and face a new challenge rather than kind of take a step backwards with a rematch with a man that he's already dominated for the majority of a fight. Now, you look below Carl Froch, Arthur Abrams in number 2. Again, same reasons really, but also on Arthur Abrams' behalf. I know obviously Arthur Abrams, like Carl Froch, has got a world title. Carl Froch is only the WBA regular, of course, which is, the one behind Ward's WBA Super World. But let's look at Arthur Abrams. Is he really going to want to fight any more big fights? He's got his world title in Germany. He draws a good crowd. He gets paid well. And he gets paid well, more importantly, against fighters that aren't really big names. He's obviously had that crazy little rival with Stieglitz, with the WBO super middleweight title changing hands a couple of occasions. After initially winning it from Stieglitz, that is, then losing it to Stieglitz and regaining it back. And of course, he just fought Britain's Paul Smith twice back to back. And, that's the kind of, I'm not saying Paul Smith's a bad fighter, but let's be honest, Paul Smith's not elite. He's just a world level fighter. And that's kind of what Arthur Abrams seems set in his ways of doing now until he retires, just simply fighting world level fighters or contenders and defending his belt at home in Germany in front of his fan base and making some good money. The guy's 35, he's had 21 world title fights against some big names, but the only big names he's really beginning against he's lost to. But that's Arthur Abrams. So that fight's not going to happen anytime soon for Andre Ward, let's be honest. Coming down the rankings a little bit, I'll get you going out now, so I'm not entirely sure who's next up. Off the top of my head, oh yes, one of my old school favourites, George Groves. George Groves fight ain't going to happen anytime soon anyway. We know that, and I'm talking about immediate future here, not long term. Why is that fight not going to happen? Because George Groves' fight got a mandatory to fight Anthony Durrell after Anthony Durrell fights Badou Jack. So I would thoroughly expect George Groves to either have some time off into his next big world title fight after having quite a hectic schedule over the last couple of years, not only with fighting but with, of course, his promotional side of things as well that he's divulged into, and his change of trainer, which, you know, he's still not clicking 100% in my opinion. That relationship between Patrick? Patrick? I can't remember. But the relationship between trainer and fighter is basically still bonding there. You know, I still think that's got a little bit of work to be done on, and it could improve George Groves as a fighter. So that fight's not happening. Number 4 on the list is James DeGale. A fight I would love to see is Andre Durrell versus James DeGale. I really do think that is a supremacy at super middleweight fight, because I do rate James DeGale very highly. Always have done, just not through his injury days and backing up to the ropes and getting hit easily days. So James DeGale fight's not going to happen. James DeGale's mandatory for the IBF, the vacant IBF title. Of course, Carl Froch has just vacated due to injury. So I'm not going to be hopeful of seeing that fight anytime soon. I would kind of expect, if James DeGale is going on to, apparently he's probably going to be facing Andre Durrell, I would expect James DeGale to have a tough fight against Andre Durrell, but it's one I would expect him to win, just based on the fact I just think he would have too much accuracy and movement for Andre Durrell to comprehend with. But it's a fight where if James DeGale gets past Andre Durrell, and Andre Ward did have a big fight in the summer, or a named fight in the summer, then it's a fight we could possibly see later this year or earlier next year, depending upon obviously where both guys and which direction they're heading. Next fight on the list, I think it is actually Andre Durrell or his brother Anthony, which of course I know it's actually Robert Stieglitz. Let's be honest, Robert Stieglitz. What can we really say about Robert Stieglitz? He held that WBO super middleweight title for a long time, just fighting bog standard contenders. You know, didn't really fight a name at all until he met Arthur Abraham. Bit unlucky, I thought, to initially lose the belt to Arthur Abraham on the points, which is obviously why the rematch happened. Which, you know, he manhandled Abraham really, or not manhandled, that's a bad word to say, because Abraham's never been manhandled, but he beat Abraham quite comprehensively in that rematch before Abraham showed up again in their third fight, and Abraham won quite convincingly in the third fight. So that was interesting, but that sums up Stieglitz for you. That's his biggest 3 fights of his career right there against Arthur Abraham. So would he even want a fight against Andre Ward? You know, potentially for the money, put his name in the lights, fight in the States. Me personally, I don't think Stieglitz would want anything to do with it. I don't think Andre Ward would want anything to do with it either. I mean, Stieglitz is not exactly a great name to boost your popularity or your rating or make people aware that Andre Ward is back. You know, you're not exactly going to set a statement by beating someone like Robert Stieglitz. That's not being harsh on Stieglitz. That's just boxing. That's just the way it is. You know. So moving down the list. Number 6 is Anthony Durrell. Well, he's fighting Badou Jack next, and if he gets past Badou Jack, which I thoroughly expect he will do, then he will be defending his world title against George Groves in a fight which could potentially be a barnstormer. I'm certainly expecting that fight not to go 12 rounds. Now, the next guy on the list is actually a very interesting fighter. He comes in with a 31-0 record, although he is Mexican and he is young, so we kind of have to understand, kind of with Canelo Alvarez, that his record is naturally going to be boasted by the fact he would have a lot of fights in Mexico against fighters who were probably, you know, some were probably genuine contenders, or some of them were probably like in the same similar position as Ramirez, maybe up and coming, and fighting each other early doors, so you kind of progresses to the next level. But what I'm kind of saying is, you know, when I always see a Mexican fighter's record, and he's very padded at a young age, you just kind of don't expect it to be padded with quality, but rather padded with a load of Mexican fighters in his younger days. The only thing that does give Mexican fighters is a lot of experience in fighting, which certainly helps Mexican fighters when they're on the biggest stage. Because we know, like the British fans, the Mexican fans are pretty loud, and Puerto Rican fans are pretty cool too. But the problem with Ramirez is, at the minute, he's not really a name. And again, it's the same argument with Stieglitz, really. If Andre Ward's coming back, I do genuinely think he needs to fight a name. It needs to be a name that people kind of know in the casual boxing world, as it were. Die-hard fans like myself, we have a conversation from die-hard fan to a die-hard fan. You kind of know what the other guy's talking about. A casual boxing fan will kind of look at you gone out, And also, with Ramirez, go watch some YouTube footage. Just go watch some YouTube footage and tell me that guy's not dangerous. I think Ramirez has got the potential, and I will use that word lightly because I hate throwing around the word potential, because every fighter's got potential at some point in their career. But Ramirez really has got a lot of potential to become a real big superstar at super middleweight. He's got skill, he's got speed, he's got power, and he looks like he could be quite exciting to watch as well, which always helps if you're a boxer up and coming trying to make a name for yourself. So I don't think Ward would touch that fight just based on those few reasons there. The main one being he's not a name, but just because of the fact it would be a fight against a guy not really known on a world scale, who potentially could be a massive banana skin for any super middleweight in the world right now, because he really is an untested treasure, as it were. So, continuing down the list, number 8, Andre Duell. We know what Andre Duell's doing next. He'll be fighting James DeGale, all being well, hopefully over here in the UK, and that'll be for the vacant IBF title. Number 9, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Well, that fight's not happening with Andre Ward. I can list the reasons for that one straight off the top of the head. One, he's fighting from Fonfara next in April, which is not a fight I'm convinced he gets past as easily as some people are making out. Fonfara was one tough cookie. He proved that against Stevenson. The one thing I would expect Chavez to do in that fight is to eventually grind Fonfara down a little bit better than Stevenson did. However, never say never in the world of boxing. It's an interesting fight. Number 2, the reason it's not going to happen with Chavez is kind of still kind of saying the public perception that he wants a Carl Froch fight next, and then he wants to take on Triple G at the end of the year. He seems quietly confident he'll get past Carl Froch. I don't think, I think it'll be a close fight, but I don't think Chavez Jr. would get past Carl Froch. I think he's, people say Carl Froch is there to get hit. Chavez Jr. is there to get hit. Chavez Jr. is there to get hit. I don't think there'd be a knockout in the Froch Chavez fight either. I think it would be a points decision, but I think Froch has got a better jab. And I think Froch, certainly in the earlier rounds, even though Froch is a notorious late starter, so it sounds quite ironic, but particularly in the earlier rounds of the fight, the middle rounds, I would expect Froch just to get behind his jab, throw the combinations, and try and catch Chavez coming in. And that's kind of how I'd expect that fight to go. And a bit of role reversal from how we'd see Froch normally fight, with maybe Chavez the one coming on towards the later of the fight, down the stretch. But with Froch being strong down the stretch as well, that would make it rather interesting. And it could even make the fight a little bit open for that knockout that I don't think would happen. Number 10 in that list on the Ring magazine is Felix Sturm. Fuck knows why he's there. He's barely a middleweight anymore, let alone super bloody middleweight. Let's be honest, Felix Sturm has been slipping for the past couple of years, so I don't know why he's number 10 on the Ring list. But anyway, that's the top 10 right now, right? Okay, I'm putting Andre Ward at the top of the tree as like super champion, if you like, more the recognised best, and then the top 10 below him. Those 10 fighters, with the exception of Stieglitz and Ramirez, are pretty much all taken up into the fights in the immediate future, or are not going to fight him, or are just not worth fighting, i.e. Felix Sturm. There's just no point discussing an Andre Ward Felix Sturm in the same sentence. Just no point. So where does Andre Ward go? Is this why we've not had an announcement yet about Andre Ward's next fight? Is he waiting for one of these guys to become available? Or should he just do what people have been saying for a long time and kind of say, well, I've cleaned out super middleweight. There's not really anybody left me to fight apart from the Hungry Lions currently coming through, like your George Groves, your Anthony Durrell, your James McHale, and your Ramirez. So do you fight the young lion and wait for one of those guys to become available? Or do you say, hey, I've been super middleweight king, let's move it up. There's some interesting fights at light heavy. Could you imagine an Andre Ward Stevenson or an Andre Ward Kovalev fight? More excited about the Kovalev prospect, to be honest, than the Stevenson prospect. But could you imagine that fight? That would be superb. We could actually see Andre Ward actually get knocked down. I know Kovalev is not the fastest, but one thing that Kovalev is he's very technically sound. He's like an Eastern European robot kind of fighter with power to back it up. And I would fancy one or two of those right hands to land on Ward's chin at some point through that fight. It'd be quite interesting. But and even saying even that, Stevenson and Kovalev are both involved in fights in the near future as well. So this is going out on a whim, right? But there's one guy available right now that I think would take the fight, because I think the fight he's mandatory for, he's never going to give him a fight in a million years. He'd rather vacate the belt. And that man is a man who has got an ever-growing reputation in boxing and has just beat the second best in his division this past weekend via an 11th round stoppage. If you haven't worked out who I'm talking about by now, of course I am talking about Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Now, why do I think that fight is ideal and why it should be next? Triple G is now mandatory for Miguel Cotto, right? Miguel Cotto wants nothing to do with Triple G. I can guarantee you that right now. He would want nothing to do with Triple G. If he ever signed to fight Triple G, I'll be the first one to say how shocked I am. But obviously right now as well, as far as I'm aware, Cotto is still chasing the Canelo Alvarez fight. So it looks like he's going to be in a fight soon regardless, which would leave Triple G open for a fight. Andre Ward's looking for a fight. Andre Ward's looking for a name. Triple G is a name. Andre Ward will be looking at a lucrative event money-wise. Triple G can provide that. I don't think it'd be pay-per-view, but they get paid well. And Triple G would probably fight in Andre Ward's hometown, in front of Andre Ward's Matt and his dog fans. So Triple G would probably bring most of the fans. And I think that fight makes a lot of sense. It would give Triple G a chance to step it up against the real big name in the sport and test himself against one of the pound for pound best in the sport. And it would give Andre Ward the opportunity he craves, which is a comeback against a big name. I think I don't want to go into too much detail about this now because the fight, is not happening as it stands, of course. But, you think about it. Think about GGG's position in middleweight right now, where no one wants to touch him. Martin Murray is the second best middleweight in the world. I'll tell you that right now. Don't anyone tell me different. Don't bring this Miguel Cotto bullshit. He beat Sergio Martinez. No, he beat a crippled Sergio Martinez, yeah? Get over it. Yeah? If that had been Sergio Martinez 4 years ago, when he didn't have his problems so bad, Miguel Cotto would have been knocked the fuck out by Sergio Martinez. I am confident of that. Right? I'm a fan of both guys, by the way. This is nothing against Miguel Cotto. But Miguel Cotto is not a middleweight. Didn't he fight Sergio Martinez at catchweight? Didn't they fight at 157 last summer rather than 160? Right? So you got Miguel Cotto, who's now talking about a catchweight fight against Canelo Alvarez. He's not even fighting at 160, and he's the middleweight champion of the world. Right? That's another thing that fucks me off. But this is what I'm saying. So you got Triple G. He's not going to get his mandatory against Cotto. Certainly not anywhere near time future. He's just beat the second best guy at middleweight, and you've got all other middleweights kind of looking at each other going, who the fuck's going to fight him next? You've got the WBO title, of course. which Andy Lee's defending against Peter Quillen. And straight after that fight, the winner of that fight's got to fight Billy Joe Saunders. Right, so even if those guys did want a piece of Triple G, it's not going to happen anytime soon. Right? On the other hand, there isn't anybody. Unless Triple G is just going to go back to fighting substandard opposition again. So it makes sense. Andre Ward's got no one to fight right now at super middle. Triple G's got no one right now to fight at middleweight. Alright? Triple G can go back down to middleweight after fighting Andre Ward. Maybe they can even meet at a catchweight. Maybe fight at like 164. Right? It's not impossible. These things could happen. And I think it's a fight that right now, with lack of opponents for both guys, they both want to make money, they both want to be involved in high profile fights. Andre Ward certainly, like we've been saying for the majority of this video, she needs a high profile comeback fight. Isn't that the fight? I think it is. I think it's his only option. If I was Rock Nation right now, I'd be going all out to get the Golovkin fight next. Otherwise, Golovkin's going to end up fighting a fringe contender at middleweight in front of a packed out arena in the States just because they want to see a knockout, and they'll get a knockout, so at least they'll be getting what they pay for. And we'll see Andre Ward in against, a substandard contender or fringe contender at super middleweight, which is not going to give him what he needs, which is a comeback fight that's going to sell tickets, which is going to raise his popularity and his profile. Think about it. Let me know, yeah? But that is the only fight I see making sense. Only fight I see making sense for Andre Ward right now. If anyone's got any other different suggestions, please subscribe. Please drop me a comment down below in the comments box. I'll be more than happy to have a look and debate this one with you. For the time being, peace out.